Welcome back to Cooking with Kayla D. I'm Kayla, and this is my husband Randy. My disclaimer. If you haven't done so, please subscribe and remember to hit that notification bell so you get all the up-to-date episodes. Also, feel free to to leave a comment so we can get to know you and hear your feedback on our videos, and also share. Sharing is caring. Today we're going to be doing things a tad bit different. I wanted to share with you some shopping tricks of mine. So today we're working on pork. This is my grocery haul from Aldi. I got this for under $20, and how I did it was through Instacart. They offered me $40 off of a $80 order, so I only had to pay half price for my grocery order. Here is the pork loin. We're going to be working on that for this video. This is a 5-pound exactly pork tenderloin, and it was $10.15, as you can see on the sticker there. It is quite large. We're going to break this cut of meat down and make several meals out of it. I will have the details of how many meals you can get per person in the description area below. So stay with us and let's break down this meat and also cook up one recipe from this cut of meat. So first off, we're going to take our meat, and you want to go ahead and get that bag off of there, and let's get it dry. I have my bacon out, and I also got my Mesquite seasoning out because we're going to be making a pork tenderloin out of this and cooking it in this recipe. So what I want you to do is go ahead and start cutting your bag and getting it off of your pork. I also am going to use some of my scrap parchment paper. I always save my scraps until there's nothing left to use. But I'm going to put a piece of parchment paper down on the counter to lay the pork I'm not using right away over to the side. What you'll need for the pork loin recipe that we're going to be doing is a half a pound of bacon and also some mesquite seasoning. The recipe for my mesquite seasoning is in the description area below. Now, if you're using the store-bought mesquite, I would use a little less because theirs is a lot more saltier than mine is, so you might end up with too much of a salty meat. So first off, I take my bag and I cut it off and pull my pork out. And I got this one at Aldi, as you know. But I also have the prices and the stores you can get this pork tenderloin at. If you go to the larger stores like Costco or Sam's Club, it is quite larger. But Aldi is next in line for the size, and then Walmart is a little bit smaller than this one. But I do have the price per pound in the description area below. So then you want to take some paper towels and you want to dry your pork very well. Wipe your surface off where you had it laying, and then continue to pat it dry. You want to make sure you get it as dry as you can all the way around. Once you have patted your pork dry, make sure to discard your paper towel into the trash can. And then we'll get to cutting this pork tenderloin. For me, I'm going to cut it right down the center long ways because I want to use the top part for my pork, and this bottom part is more tender, that red part with a marbling. It is a tender cut of the pork loin. So I'm going to save that part, and I'm going to make a smaller pork loin out of it until I decide how I want to cook it. And I'm also going to make some pork chop patties that I'm going to pound out, and you'll see that in this video. And we are going to make pork fritters out of that. So once you get your pork loin cut down the center and you fillet it, and you just do long strokes with your knife because you do not want it to be chunky and cut bad, then you're going to go ahead and flip it over and cut it all the way through. The reason I did this is because I was cutting this on top of my granite countertops, and I did not want to damage the countertops, so I did not cut it all the way through. But I also did not want to put this on my wooden cutting board because it is meat, and I don't want anything from the meat getting in the wood because it will stay, and my plastic cutting board is not large enough. So if you have a countertop that you're cutting on like I did, be very careful not to go all the way through with your knife. You'll want to go through as far as you can and then flip it over and then continue cutting it from the bottom up. That way you're not damaging your countertops. So now that I have that cut in half, I'm going to go ahead and cut open my bacon. And now that I have my bacon cut open, and be careful cutting that as well if you're doing it on your countertop. You don't want it to go all the way through the plastic as well. Scissors are more advisable for this. Sorry about that. I am just getting over being sick. I've been sick for almost a month straight now with the COVID. And because I have lupus, it is just really taking a toll on my immune system. So I may lose breath because I also am a severe asthmatic. So I may lose my breath and have to cut and then come back on and continue with the voiceover. But what you want to do is lay your bacon out and overlap it just slightly or put it right next to each other. You want to lay your bacon out in a line because we're going to bacon wrap our pork loin for our recipe for dinner tonight. So what you want to do is continue to lay the bacon out. And once you get all of your bacon laid out, you'll want to halfway through put your pork on to check the measurements. And the reason we do that is to make sure that we're getting exactly the length of bacon that we need to wrap our pork up. And then we're also going to cut a couple slices of bacon in half to cover up the ends of our pork tenderloin as well. One side of your pork tenderloin will be fatter and the other one will go down and be thin. So that thin side, you need to, see how it's thin? Squish it in like that until it's just as fat as the other side. And see, I had one slice of bacon too much. So I'm going to take that and grab my knife. And I'm going to be very careful by doing it in the air and not on my counter. And I'm going to go ahead and lay that underneath that end of the pork and lay the other half slice underneath the pork on top of the bacon. So it's there so that when I pull it up, it's going to cover that end of that pork tenderloin. I'm going to get another slice of bacon and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to cut that bacon in half. And then I'm going to lift up the end of the pork, as you can see here. You'll want to put it under on top of the bacon a little bit. Under the pork loin and on top of the bacon a little bit. And it does not have to be perfect. It doesn't matter which end. So now we have it so we can wrap it and fold it and fold it. So now we're going to work on our mesquite seasoning. That is awesome. So you get yourself a bowl out or any type of container you're going to be using and pour you out a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of mesquite seasoning. I started with a 1/4 cup and it ended up being enough. And you're going to very generally pour on this mesquite seasoning and rub it all over your pork tenderloin. You want to make sure to get it on every single side. And like I said, if you're using the store-bought mesquite seasoning, you will not want to use as much because it is generally a lot saltier than this one. So you want to pour that on and rub it really good. Just pat it in very, very well. Continue flipping it and rubbing it in very, very well. I did the top, I did the sides, and once I had that done, then I did the bottom, and then I also did the ends. And then I even had a little bit left over from that 1/4 cup I had poured out to put some on top of the bacon after I wrapped the bacon. You can use more than a 1/4 cup. Like I said, a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup is fine, and it will not be that bad if you're using my recipe. If you're using the store-bought, once again, just be very careful because it is generally a lot saltier. So next you're going to go ahead and pull your ends up. There's one. Make sure to pull it apart a little bit if you have to make sure it's going to be covered. There you go. Once you have that up, you pull the back over. And if you need to do one slice at a time, that is fine. You do one slice at a time. I find it's easier to pull up big sections and then work on my slices and fix them. So that's why I do it that way when I'm starting it out. Then next you're going to flip the other side over. This time I will do one slice at a time to make sure I'm covering up any holes that were from the other section being flipped over, the back section. So once you have your bacon wrapped over, as you can see now, you want to flip it over. The back side's going to have holes and gaps. Make sure it's all secure. And now that it is, we're just going to take the little bit of mesquite that we have left in our bowl, and we're going to go ahead and just pour it over the top and rub it in. And because we're working on breaking our meat down right now, we're going to go ahead and take this pork tenderloin and shove it into a Ziploc bag until we're ready to bake that later. This pork tenderloin is half the size of that, so it's 2.5 pounds. This will feed my husband and I for 3 meals at least. So just to give you an idea on it, if you're a family of 4 to 6 people, this is perfect for one dinner for you. If you're a family of 2 or 3, this is perfect for 2 to 3 meals. And if you are a single person, you could get about 5 to 6 meals out of that. It just depends on how much you guys eat. So go ahead and clean your surface off, and let's get ready to continue working on our meat. So excited. So with this pork, we have this other half of the loin. This is the tender part. It's got a little bit of the tough and tender, so I'm going to cut it in half, and the toughest part of it, which you can make pork chops out of, we're going to work on that right now. We're going to take the more tender part. That's the tail. That's like a filet mignon of pork. We're going to set that to the back, and we'll work on that here in a little bit. Here, we're going to take this and cut this into about 1/2-inch chops. And the reason why I'm going to do this is, and remember, you don't go all the way down with that knife. You just want to go so far down so you don't cut your countertops. So I got 5 1/2-inch pork chops out of that. I'm going to flip it over there and continue to cut upward. And we're going to beat these out because we're using them for a pork fritter recipe that you'll be seeing soon. I always see a lot of chicken pasta recipes, and I thought, why not? Why can't we have a pork pasta recipe? So there's a pork fritter pasta recipe coming soon to Cooking with Kayla D. And you'll be seeing these in that video shortly. So after you get your pork chops cut up, you could either use these for pork chops or you can beat them like I did. So you can see they're nice, thick cut chops. They're beautiful. And they are ready to rock. So I'm going to set those to the side. And I have me a gallon-sized bag that I had cut the top off and cut down the sides so I can flip it over. And I'm going to beat this and flatten it out as thin as I can get it without tearing the meat. I just used my wooden rolling pin that I have, and I just beat it, and I made sure to be careful not to go off of the meat because, again, I have a granite countertop, so I don't want any cracks or anything in it. So you have to be very careful when you're working on your surface. Always think about the surface you're working on, and take care of what you do have so it will last you a really long time. Like for us, we rent our condo, so we don't want to damage it. We actually want it to be in better condition when we leave than when it was when we got there. So now you have your pork beat out, and you could see how much larger it is. You're still getting the same amount of meat, you're just getting a bigger cut. So that's going to make a beautiful fried filet to go with our pasta dish later on. If you're thinking like a chicken, you bread it and you fry it, and then oh, how beautiful it is when you eat pasta. See, that's what I had in mind when I was banging these out. You could also do a traditional pork fritter recipe with this, with like mashed potatoes, green beans, corn, the typical, but we just wanted to try something different. So we're going to be working on a Tuscany type recipe for that. Then you're going to continue to beat your chops out one after the other, and make sure to evenly beat them to thin them out. Get them as large as you can, and then set them aside, and then continue working on the rest of them. You want your pork chops to be thin, but you don't want to bust any holes into the meat. So it is important to be very careful when you're doing this, but also to make sure you're evenly beating out your chops. So now that we have all 5 of our chops out, I haven't decided yet what I want to do with this cut of meat, the tender part. So I'm just going to roll it up into that Ziploc bag I used and freeze it like that until I decide what I want to do with it. I know I can get 2 to 3 meals off of it. I just haven't decided what yet. I can cut it up into cubes and I can use it for like sweet and sour pork or orange pork. Like you would do orange chicken, you could do the same with pork. Or to grind some of it up and make some lumpia out of it, or breakfast sausage by adding some lard. Or if I want another pork tenderloin out of it or some pork chops, I just haven't decided yet. So I'm just going to save that and put it inside my gallon-sized Ziploc bag wrapped up, so I know I'm not done with it yet. I don't know what I want to do yet. I can make shredded pork tacos. I could also use it and make like barbecue pork sliders. I just don't know yet, you guys. If you have any ideas of what I can do with that, leave a comment and let me know what you think I should do with that. And remember, it is the tender part of the meat. So think of some really good recipes that you think we should try on here where we're using tender pork fillet, and we'll see if we have any good ideas, and then we'll whip something up. So what I like to do is get some parchment paper and I cut it into strips big enough to fit my fillets, and I put them individually in between each paper because, of course, for me, my husband, 5 fillets, that's enough for several meals. So I'm going to go ahead and freeze them with parchment paper in between them. That way I can just pop them off frozen with like a butter knife, sliding it in between each piece, and only use what I need and setting it out. So that way my meat's not going bad. And then I can put the rest right back into the freezer frozen. Plus it makes for a quick defrost too for dinner. So I'll slide those in just right with that, and that'll just be fine in the freezer. We're not going to have it frozen for too long. So we'll put that in the freezer. And look at that, $10.15, 5 pounds of pork. And look at all the pork ideas you have to do with your dinner. And even that Mesquite pork tenderloin, I could have cut it into 3 for 2 of us. You can cut it into half for a family of 4. And then, of course, if you're larger than a family of 4, it's perfect for a 1 meal. But look at how many ideas you can come up with and do. It was such a fun experiment working with the pork loin. I've only done it once before when I bought one at Sam's Club, and I didn't share it then. But I thought, why not share this? Budget-friendly meals are really important, especially these days with inflation. Prices are going up, so why not share what you know? So there you go. We've got pork fillets, we got a pork loin, and we've got a Mesquite bacon-wrapped pork tenderloin. You'll want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. I lined my pan with parchment paper, put my Mesquite pork tenderloin in it, wrapped it with foil, and I cooked it for 40 minutes. I pulled it out, I took the foil off, threw it away, and I put it back in the oven for about another 10 to 15 minutes until my bacon was golden brown and crispy and the internal temperature was 165 degrees. Once that was done, then my pork tenderloin was ready. I let it set out for 20 minutes and rest before cutting it, so some of those juices could suck back up into it and it would cool down a little bit. We served ours just with a can of Bush's grilling beans and some baked potato that we had made up and a little bit of garlic bread. I will say though, these rolls that we got from Walmart were so good. Normally we don't have gluten. These do have a little bit of gluten in them. But my God, they were so good. That bread was amazing. I will have a link in the description area for those rolls because they were bomb.
This is a prayer from the Apostle Paul for all of us. It says, "In this I pray, that your love may abound still more and more in knowledge and in all discernment, that you may approve of things that are excellent, that you may be sincere and without offense till the day of Christ, being filled with the fruits of righteousness which are by Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God." And that is Philippians chapter 1 verses 9, 10, and 11.
Hurricane Ian makes landfall in Florida and leaves a lot of destruction in its path. A friend of ours sent in this picture, and they woke up to a 10 to 12 foot alligator in the downstairs of their home. No, this was not in a basement. This was on their ground floor. How would you like to walk down your steps and see that big boy staring right at you? And then it hit Myrtle Beach at a category 1 here where we live, and we're right on the water. There's a ship being tossed at sea, a shrimp boat, and it ended up being beached 2 doors down from us. Also, one of the resorts in Surfside City, South Carolina, got flooded inside the building. It was at a lower elevation than we are, and the water went straight into the building and flooded it, as well as many other areas around us. Also, our famous park here, Kingdom Park in Myrtle Beach, was completely flooded. The devastation in Florida and in South Carolina, among other places, were completely horrible. But our beaches here are back to normal. And now the locals in all of these different communities in these states are now gathering together to clean up and make everything better again. If you could please keep all of these people in your prayers, we greatly appreciate it. As well as that shrimping boat captain, because that was probably their only source of income, and now they have no way to feed their family. Thank you for being here on Cooking with Kayla D. As always, God bless you all, and stay in that kitchen and keep on cooking. To subscribe to our channel, you can hit the icon here on the left, and for more wonderful recipes, here is a playlist on the right.